Hello my friends, and welcome to my final video on Fallout Tactics, which is a guide to the ultimate Fallout Tactics character. Now, some of you during the campaign have heard me refer to an ultimate Fallout build, and I've always said you don't want to build a character like this because effectively the issue with the character is it's useless up until the point that it's great, and that point comes basically at the end of the game or towards the end of the game, unless you pull off some very cheesy things. But I thought I would go into detail as to explaining the build, because it might give you guys some ideas as to how you want to build your own characters. If anyone is crazy enough to go back and play Fallout Tactics, then you want to be armed with all the knowledge. Okay, so let's start with the easy stuff. The ultimate weapon in the game, or the ultimate weapons in the game, are energy weapons. Of the choices of small guns, big guns, and throwing, I do not rate melee or unarmed at all, really. So let's explain why. Now, actually, small guns have got all of the game's best weapons from beginning to end. But there's a problem. And that problem is that small guns are great in the early game and the mid game, and then they kind of fall away. Once you start taking on super mutants, they start to fall away in effectiveness until you get your hands on the Pancor jackhammer for short range and the Ghost rifle for long range. Now, the issue is that the ammunition for those two weapons that's actually good, such as the EMP shells for the Pancor jackhammer and the slugs, and the 2 EC electromagnetic cartridges for the Ghost rifle, that ammo is extremely rare and it cannot be farmed. There's no way to get it in RNG encounters. You can't farm it at all. And what that means is that you really only have enough of that ammunition in the game to equip one character, maybe two, if you're going to risk running out of ammo and having your character be useless. Now, obviously it's a game of 6 characters most of the time, and there are plenty of characters out there that are very good but are already fully committed to small guns. So you basically want to leave your ultimate small guns available for other characters. If you build your main character for small guns, and you give your main character the ultimate small guns, i.e. the Pancor jackhammer and its rare ammunition types, and the Ghost rifle and its rare ammunition types, then you're not going to have those available for any other characters who are stuck with small guns being their primary skill, with no real easy way to rebuild them for energy weapons. So that's why I don't recommend small guns on your ultimate character. I would take it for a normal character that's going to play this game normally, but I wouldn't put it on the ultimate character. Now, the problem with big guns is that the only big gun that's worth using in the late game, really, well, two big guns that are worth using in the late game are the rocket launcher and the Browning M2. But they have problems. The rocket launcher ammunition is extremely rare until the late game. And the Browning M2's ammunition, while slightly less rare, the Browning M2 itself is very heavy, and the ammunition is extremely heavy, which means that it is difficult to take enough ammunition on one character, or even in fact 2 or 3 characters, to last the whole length of a mission if you go big guns. Now, there is of course also the Gauss minigun, but there is no way on this earth that you would want to waste that precious Gauss ammunition on on a Gauss minigun, it would be vaporized very quickly, and then you will lose access to the Gauss rifle, the Gauss sniper rifle, which is by far the better weapon. So the biggest problem with big guns is ammunition constraints and weight, which means that really you can only have one big guns character in your party if you're hoping to keep them fed. Sadly for big guns, the Vindicator minigun is very good and there's plenty of ammunition for it, but it is pretty ineffective against the robots in the late game, which kind of puts you in the same position as building for small arms, in that all of the guns that are actually reasonable and have plenty of ammunition are just completely ineffective in the late game. So, of course, we've got energy weapons. They're all really good. Probably the highest damage output per action point in the game. Very easily. Big damage range, which means very good at penetrating through armor. Effective all the way through the game from the moment you get them. The problem is, the moment you get them is, without cheesing, probably two-thirds of the way through the game is when you probably get your first energy weapon. And therein lies the problem with building for energy early, which is what you would want to do for an ultimate character. You're going to be without any weapons for a long time. Now, Fallout Tactics here, most of the other skills are actually just useless. However, I do have some recommendations. My first recommendation is Doctor, because there are no doctors in Fallout Tactics that aren't horribly built in some other way. Usually they're blind, as in they have terrible perception, and they are not contributing to combat in any way. Plus, building for Doctor means it will be very cheap for you to get Living Anatomy. Now, Living Anatomy as a perk doesn't work on robots, but it's extremely effective for farming super mutants and just killing super mutants in general, which is where the majority of your EXP is going to come from. So it's a great skill to have, and it also increases your doctoring skill from 60%, where you unlock it, to 70%. 70% is enough to pretty much doctor any injury. You don't need any more than that. So by tagging Doctor, you are saving points. And of course, you can level it up a bit if you want. In this build, it should be possible to hit the maximum skill level for energy weapons, which is 300%. And then once you've hit 300%, you've got skill points to spare. There's certainly no harm in putting them in Doctor. The last skill that I normally go for is Lockpick, and that's because in the late game there are a number of extremely well locked lockers that will have Gauss weapons in, and once again there are no lock pickers that you can get that aren't your main character, that aren't also horribly crippled for combat in some way. So you kind of want to do that yourself, and once again, you probably only need about 60-70% to unlock pretty much everything that you want to unlock with lockpicks. Now, there are some other choices here which can make sense. Many people like Sneak. I'm not really a fan of it in Fallout Tactics because of various bugs in the game, which means that you're likely to just still get hit even if you sneak up on people. Plus the almost requirement that you build your entire party for Sneak to make it work. And the fact that Sneak is it's checked every 8 action points, which means that in turn-based mode you can effectively, if you move 6 characters in turn-based mode, you're effectively getting 6 times as many sneak checks. This is the sneak bug, which I've not explained before, but this is the sneak bug. You get 6 times the sneak checks in turn-based mode, which means it's 6 times harder to stay cloaked. So it's a skill fraught with difficulty, and honestly, it's only really truly useful in Quincy, the hostage rescue mission. The rest of the game, it's kind of not useful. Once again, we've got things like steal and barter. They are very useful, but you can just train a character with steal and barter and not have them in your party. Because the only time you're going to want to steal and barter is when you're in a bunker or at a merchant. Which means that you can just bring out a character from the roster, train them for these 2 skills by doing random encounters or whatever, and just put them away when you're not using them. When you're going to combat, you can just tuck them away. Everything else you'll get from books. Traps you'll pick up from books. Science you'll pick up from books. Repair you'll pick up from books. Outdoorsman you'll pick up from books. Gambling is, once again, if you're going to build a barter, in an ideal world, you would have a spare character, pick a level 1 character, and build them for barter, gamble, and steal if you want those economic abilities, and just bring them out of the recruiter whenever you need them. The reason why Doctor and Lockpick, why we need to build those, is because you need them during battles. You'll never need gambling, steal or barter during a battle. So you can just make a throwaway character. You can pick a throwaway character from the recruit's master and build them for those 3 skills. Okay, so that's the skills. Piloting to this day, I still don't really get what it does, but you get plenty of books that increase that too, so you don't have to worry about that either. Right, in terms of traits, Gifted is the obvious pick. It is nothing but upside. The downside is supposed to be that you lose 10% on each skill to start, and you also receive 5 less skill points per level. However, each skill gains a percentage based on a certain stat. So it's not like every stat is reduced by 10% because you have more skill points. So you are actually gaining some skill back for having the points. And the -5 per level on skills is equivalent to 3 intelligence. And obviously, if you leave it as default, you would gain +1 intelligence, but you can very easily take some of the other bonus points that you got and put them intelligence to countermand what Gifted does to your skill growth. So it's a net gain. It's a net gain in stats, but it's also a net gain in skill points. You just have to focus for skill points. Lastly, the other thing that I would pick is Fast Shot. The reason why is very simple. It costs 3 action points to shoot energy pistols by default. With Fast Shot and the Rapid Fire perk, you can get that down to 1 AP. There is simply no more powerful DPS in the game than unloading a plasma pistol for 1 AP per shot. If you play in turn-based mode at all, 12 AP, 10 to 12 AP that you will have means 12 shots at your standard crit chance. I mean, it's not like by giving up aimed shots you're giving up on crits entirely. You're still going to get your crit percentage from any critical perks that you pick up. But you just can't compete with 1 AP pistol shots. And it also, it does improve the rate of fire and damage output of energy rifles as well. It's arguable whether making energy rifle shots 1 AP cheaper is worth the trade-off with aiming for the eyes or similar and getting the extra critical chance from that. It's arguable. But it's not arguable that at mid-range, because laser pistols have actually got pretty good range. It's 25 range, so it's actually very solid for a short-range weapon. It's not arguable that 1 AP energy weapon pistol shots is the best damage output in the game. That is undisputable, with the exception of maybe using the Gauss minigun, which is, you know, as we've discussed before, prohibitively expensive to do, or using a jackhammer burst with a special ammunition type. But once again, you're talking about very rare ammunition and a very short range weapon. Okay, so with your traits decided and your skills decided, it's time to decide your stats. Now, the whole shtick, if you will, of the ultimate build is a perk that was only in Fallout Tactics, and it was not in any other. It was not in any other game. So we'll reduce these all to as low as they can go, and we'll just go through them. But we're going to start with Charisma because it's the key of the build. You require 8 Charisma to get the perk Divine Intervention. Now, Divine Intervention allows you to change your perk rate from 1 every 3 levels to 1 every 2 levels. And in addition to that, it increases your highest statistic by 1. And your highest statistic can exceed your racial limit. So the racial limit for a human is 10. But Divine Favor will allow you to push that limit to 11. So, you need 8 Charisma to get Divine Favor. Now, there is a decision as to whether you want to take 7 or 8 to start with. Because you could, in theory, take 7 rather than 8, and then use, at level 12, gain Charisma to push the number to 8, which is what you will require for Divine Favor. So let's put it at 7 for now, because that is that's as low as we can take it and still do the Divine Favor build. Okay, the second thing is we want to use that boost, that Divine Favor boost, to increase our perception. Perception basically dominates the game in terms of it controls chance to hit and it controls range of weapons. You want this to be as high as humanly possible. And this is the stat that we're going to take to 11. So, you can take Perception to 9, and what that will allow you to do is, when you hit level 12, you won't spend any perks until you hit level 12. At level 12, you will gain Charisma, you will gain Perception, and then at level 15, you'll take Divine Favor. It doesn't matter whether you get Divine Favor at 14 or 15, so you can just leave it to 15. Now, the other 2 perks that you get at level 12, so when you get to level 12, you're going to have 4 perks. The other 2 perks you want is Life Giver. Life Giver adds 4 hit points per perk, per level. And the only requirement for it is 4 endurance. So, if we put 3 endurance, we can get it. Because Fallout Tactics does have 1 and only 1 stat gain in the whole thing. In the first 2 games, there were lots of surgeries and events that could increase skills and stats at various points in the story. But in Fallout Tactics, there's only 1. There's a random encounter that gives you the Elixir of Life, and the Elixir of Life increases your endurance by 1 point and gives you 16 HP. So, you just need to find that elixir before you're level 12, which is easily done. Very easily done. So 3 endurance is the lowest you can go. And you could take it higher if you want more hit points, but we'll come to that in a minute. For the purposes of the build, 3 is as low as you can go. Okay. Now, that leaves us with 20 points to spend on everything else. So, the next one is strength. Now, here's what's interesting about strength. You can get away with 2 strength. But, if you go for 2 strength, you will require the advanced power armor before you are able to use any weapons without using combat stims. Which means that your ultimate character is going to take a lot of time before they are ready for use. But, if you push the strength up to 3, then it is possible to use a pistol without using any chems. The laser pistol has a strength requirement of 3. And it is also possible to use the laser rifle and all the other laser weapons with the use of chems, because they all have a 6 requirement. But 2 is the minimum, and the build will still work. So we can leave that at 2. Now, for intelligence, we want to build up our skills as quickly as possible, so we want a 9. We're not taking 10 because we could gain intelligence to get 10 if we really wanted. And part of the strength of this build is that you're going to gain a lot of perks very quickly. Once again, agility, we can take to 9. We can push it to 10 if we want. And that leaves us with luck, which increases our crit chance. And you have the decision to make as to whether you want to trade away 1 point of luck for that extra point of strength in your ultimate build, just to give you the freedom of being able to use laser weapons without power armor, which could be pretty huge. But it is a trade-off. If you're making the ultimate character for the late game that's truly ultimate, then you're presuming that you're going to get that advanced power armor. And so you want that extra point of luck, because your character is going to be ever so slightly better for an extra point of luck. For practicality's sake, and to avoid having to use combat chemicals all the time to be able to use any weapons until you acquire power armor, I would be very tempted to actually take this extra point of strength. And it's not a total waste either, because the extra point of strength does result in a few more hit points. So it's arguable as to whether you want to swap the 2 or not. And that pretty much completes the build. So this is how it will go. You'll put every skill point you gain into energy weapons. After the first mission, you'll then go out into the wastelands and you will look for the Brahmin poker event. That will give you a lot of caps. You will then go and look for the garage at the end of the world event, whatever the real name of it is, and you'll speak to the old lady for the elixir of life. That will take you to 4 endurance, which is required for Life Giver. And it will also give you 16 extra hit points, which is nice too. After those 2 things are complete, you now need to get your hands on an energy pistol before you are in any way useful. Now, because you have 7 charisma, your Brotherhood rank should increase pretty quickly, and you may be able to get a laser pistol relatively early from the Quartermaster. But you can also snipe one from the Reavers, or from many of the late game enemies, by simply travelling across the map. and trying to find a Reaver random encounter where you can pick one up, which would be extremely difficult. Whether you do that or not, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. You're going to be relying on your other characters to get you through the early game anyway. Once you hit level 12, you are going to want to buy Life Giver ×2. You are going to want to gain Charisma, and you are going to want to gain Perception. This will give you 8 Charisma and 10 Perception. Then, at level 15, you will want to take Divine Favor, which will increase your Perception to 11. And your 2 Life Giver perks will be gaining you hit points way faster than if you had 10 Endurance. So your health will be increasing more quickly than any other character in the game's health. Unless, you build characters with more endurance in the same way. But your health is going to be, as high as it can appreciably be without sacrificing any combat capability. Which sort of has why endurance has become a dump stat. After you get Divine Favor, you're going to get perks every 2 levels. So your next one's going to be at 17, where you will pick up Extra Rate of Fire. And at level 17, with Extra Rate of Fire, that is where you will become truly frightening. Because you will have 1 AP laser pistol shots. And if you've got power armor, then you're going to start to be able to use your laser rifles and plasma rifles and so on. With, extremely cheaply. Probably be able to fire it 3 or 4 times every turn. From then on, the game is your oyster, because you are going to increase in power at an incredibly rapid rate. You're going to gain another perk at 19. You could take bonus damage, you could take bonus crit chance. It's up to you. You'll probably... noting that the game ends roughly around level 25 if you just play it normally, you're going to be able to get, say, 19, 21, 23 and 25, 4 additional perks, which is going to let you get additional crit chance ×3 plus better criticals if you want to go down that route, or improved ranged damage and some crit chance and better criticals. Or you could even look at increasing, for example, better range damage ×2 plus an extra point of luck and an extra point of agility. Maybe a couple of points of action boy. But the point is that all of these additional combat perks, there's only about 10 of them. So you only need about 20 levels to get them all with Divine Favor. Starting at 19. Because at 17 you're going to get Improved Rate of Fire. That's simply the best perk in the game. But from 19 onwards you can gain all the other combat perks. And so you would be potentially level 39 by the time you had collected literally every combat perk in the game. Now, the highest level in the game is 50. It's very unrealistic to get there because it requires millions and millions and millions of EXP. It would take literally thousands and thousands of hours to grind out. But by the time you hit level 21 to 23, which is before the final missions, the game's final missions, you will have a character that is easily better than any other character you could possibly build. And that is sort of why you can make an ultimate character in Fallout Tactics, is simply because you're going to be able to hit that 300% energy weapons. You're going to be able to get all the combat perks you want. You're going to have more hit points than anyone who actually builds for endurance. And you're going to have 11 perception. You could have 10 agility. And between those two, you're going to be able to outsnipe anyone who's not a ghoul. And ghouls are soft enough that you'll be able to out-tank them. And that's it, really. So anyway, I hope this helps someone out there. Having gone through in detail why every stat has been selected this way for what you would consider to be an ultimate build. And the final thing that I would say is the reason why I never built my own character this way, and I went for something a little bit more moderate, is simply because this character will be baggage until, at the very least, they will be baggage until level 12. And they will also be baggage until you get a laser pistol. And they're going to be baggage at long range until you find power armor. And those 3 breakpoints, depending on how you play, can come in the mid game to mid-late game. So you're going to have to carry this character for 2/3 of the game before they actually become good. Unless you spend a lot of time cheesing in the wastelands and you're lucky enough to get your hands on an energy weapon. Even then, you're not going to have any long range capability until you get your hands on power armor. Yeah, and it's gonna, you're gonna basically struggle through the early game because your main character is not going to be contributing at all. And I really don't know how fun that would be. But the information's out there now. I hope this helps someone out there make good decisions on character building. The Fallout Tactics campaign, you can see that if you look at my own campaign, realistically, no one is going to hit 300% skill level by the time the game is over, unless you really, really, really grind for it. But this character will hit that by that point. But there's going to be a whole section of the game, a whole large section of the game, more than 50% of the game, where this character is not going to contribute at all. And that is it. I hope, as I said before, I hope this helps someone out there. Put the information out there. The guides for this game are not that great. Yeah, have fun with the ultimate character, or don't have fun with it, because potentially it might not be much fun. You may end up quitting the game before this character rises to power. But it's an interesting discussion, nevertheless. Okay, and that's it for now. And that's it for Fallout Tactics. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next campaign.